So, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to unpack a pretty intense scenario, one that's hypothetical but grounded in a ton of research. What if the United States actually went to war with Venezuela? And believe me, the story behind why that might happen is probably not what you'd expect.
Okay, picture this. The date is January 3rd, 2026, and the world is waking up to some absolutely stunning news coming out of South America. I mean, it's the kind of thing you'd expect to see in a blockbuster movie, but suddenly it's very, very real.
An elite U.S. strike force, we're talking backed by 150 aircraft, has just descended on Caracas, the capital. And in this just jaw-dropping military operation, they've captured Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his wife and are flying them to the U.S. to face drug trafficking charges. And then, shortly after the raid, this is the kind of statement that would come out of the White House. It's so blunt, so direct, that it leaves the entire world scrambling and asking the same single question. Why? Why on earth would something like this actually happen?
Okay, so obviously you can't just do something like this without a story to back it up, right? Every major military action needs a public explanation. So the U.S. administration would roll out this really clear, really urgent case for the American people and for the world.
So here's the official line they'd feed the public. It's about three things: fighting the drug trade, stopping a massive migration crisis at the border, and taking down these powerful criminal groups. But here's the thing, while those are the big talking points, a lot of experts who actually study this stuff will tell you, Venezuela isn't even a major player in the drug trade. It's mostly just a pass-through country. And this is where the story takes a really sharp turn. Because what if that whole official story is just, well, a cover? What if the real reason has nothing to do with what's crossing the border, and everything to do with what's buried deep, deep under Venezuelan soil? To really get to the bottom of this, we have to talk about oil. But wait, it's not as simple as just oil. We have to get really specific here because it turns out not all oil is created equal. And that one little detail, well, it basically runs the world. So think about it like this. You've got two kinds of crude oil. On one hand, you have light crude, which is kind of like a smoothie. It's thin, it flows super easily, and it's what America is pumping out like crazy thanks to fracking. But then you have heavy crude. Think of it as gloop. It's this thick, sticky, tar-like stuff. And here is the absolute kicker. America's entire industrial machine, it was built to run on the gloop. You see, the U.S. has this massive network, right? Over 100 refineries, huge hubs down on the Gulf Coast in Texas and Louisiana. And for decades, these gigantic facilities were built with one job in mind: take that heavy, gloopy crude from places like Mexico and Venezuela and turn it into the gas that powers our cars. Trying to switch them over to process that light smoothie oil, we're talking insanely expensive. So you can start to see the problem here, right? This reliance on one very specific kind of oil creates this huge, huge strategic vulnerability for the U.S. It's a paradox at the heart of the American economy, and it's a really dangerous one. I mean, look at this. Thanks to fracking and the whole shale revolution, U.S. oil production has just exploded. We're talking #1 producer in the world. But, and this is the critical detail you have to remember, all of that new oil, it's the light stuff, it's the smoothie, that the refiners aren't really built for. And that is the great paradox. The U.S. is pumping out more oil than any country in history, and yet we're still forced to import massive amounts from other countries. Why? Because we need that specific kind of oil. That heavy crude, the gloop, now makes up something like 70% of all our oil imports. Our refineries are literally thirsty for it. So, the billion-dollar question, or in this case, the 303 billion barrel question, is where do you find the world's biggest stash of that heavy gloop that America needs so badly? Yep, that's the amount of oil sitting under Venezuela, the single largest proven reserve on the entire planet. And guess what kind it is? Almost all of it is that heavy, thick, tar-like stuff that U.S. refineries are designed to handle. It's like a perfect, if incredibly dangerous, match. Venezuela has the exact thing the U.S. industrial engine is starving for. Okay, so once you understand that this is really about oil, a very specific kind of oil, the rest of the geopolitical chessboard just snaps into place. This isn't just about a resource grab. It's about power, it's about history, and it's about who's going to run the world. You have to see this hypothetical attack not as something new, but as the latest chapter in a very, very old story. We're talking about the Monroe Doctrine, a 200-year-old policy that basically declared Latin America as America's backyard. This wouldn't be an isolated incident. It's part of a long, long history of U.S. intervention in the region.
And there's another huge piece of this puzzle: China and Russia. See, the attack isn't just about getting the oil, it's about keeping it away from America's rivals. For years, China has been Venezuela's biggest customer, its main trading partner. So U.S. intervention isn't just an invasion, it's a direct challenge to Beijing and Moscow. It turns Venezuela into ground zero for a new global power struggle.
Now we have to talk about the legality of all this, because according to pretty much any legal analysis you look at, a unilateral attack like this would be flat out illegal. We're talking violations of the UN Charter, which says you can't just attack another country, and it would also violate the U.S. Constitution and the War Powers Resolution, which clearly state that only Congress, not the President, has the power to declare war. And that really brings us to the core question here, doesn't it? The whole scenario we've walked through is built on this idea that a hidden economic need, this craving for a specific kind of oil, could push a country to an act of war. It really makes you think, when a nation's entire economy depends on a resource it just doesn't have, what lines is it willing to cross in the name of national security?